Good morning. How are you today? Good, good. Did you have a good Thanksgiving holiday and break? Okay, I did it too. Oh, okay. So we are all coming back here, and this is our last week of this whole semester. So this Thursday will be your last day. So if you are planning to submit maybe one more reflection paper for the extra credit, so due date of all the assignment is this Thursday. So today I will give you our last in-class assignment, which is what is your diagnosis based on chapter 14, which is psychological disorder, and next chapter will be therapy. Yeah. So I will give you now, and we are not going to do right now, but at the end of this chapter, yeah, we will do together. Yeah. So if you are watching my lecture, we have one more assignment, so you can submit through the Blackboard. Those are based on the chapter 14, psychological disorder. We maybe try to be kind of more psychologist or maybe therapist, try to put those people who suffer psychological disorder into some category of psychological disorders, right? Yeah, so we can do it. So today we kind of in the middle of this chapter 14, eating disorders. We stopped here and we tried to begin with the anorexia nervosa, but yeah, we just kind of stop here. So maybe I kind of go over a little bit about eating disorders. So Daniel, have you ever maybe heard about somebody have some eating disorders?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
You heard of it? Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not like a common, but it's kind of more become kind of increasing population, especially for the female, like a junior high and high school students. They really put like a, maybe thinness is really ideal. I should be thinner and maybe losing more weight and being more attractive. I guess social media, we kind of project it in that way more. So that can be a big problem because you need to have a good nutrition, like a balanced meal for, I mean, at least 2 meals per day, yeah, even though you are very busy, but depending on how do they kind of perspective, like differently, maybe wrong way, I guess, losing weight is the best way. And, beauty is everything. So I really need to be thinner and thinner and thinner. The problem is like social media influencer, sometimes they kind of advertise, look at me, I'm drinking maybe this green juice in the morning and afternoon. And if you follow me, you can be like me. So it can be really problematic. So under the eating disorders, there are three. I mean, here in this textbook, but there are more. So I'm going to explain more. One of those, eating disorders. So anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa and binge eating disorder. Just like those names, we can kind of assume anorexia nervosa is as a human being, you need to have a good balanced nutrition. Basically, they don't want to eat food because they want to be thin and thinner, because thinning and thinness is ideal. I want to be prettier and look better to other people. And I will explain more. And bulimia nervosa, sometimes we do not notice if people suffer bulimia nervosa because they look okay. They look, not that thin and thin because they do eat. They do eat, yeah, but they do purge. Kind of they throw up and try to remove their consumption of food. So sometimes their weight looks okay and not that like thin and thin, but still they have a big problem. And binge eating disorders, if you are eating certain food and maybe certain time, at least once a week, yeah, maybe kind of sustain at least like 3 months and 2 months, kind of keep doing like a bunch of eating, like a binge eating, but not throwing, yeah. So those can be new category of eating disorder, updated version of DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Now it's a 5th edition, text reversion. So another thing is, have you ever tried, maybe I should drink only water and clean diet? People say like a clean diet. So when you go to a restaurant, there are nothing you can choose because all the menu, it does have some, like a fat and grease and maybe too much, carb, and there's nothing I can choose. Have you ever maybe felt it in that way? Because if you're really kind of looking for kind of clean and good nutrition, maybe healthy Yeah, clean and healthy diet. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes we want to do it, and that's okay. But if you're really focusing on cleanness and healthy, it's really hard to meet people at the restaurant because there are nothing you can kind of choose. Maybe I will be okay. Maybe I will maybe drink just water. Yeah, it can be a problem because that's the orthorexia. That's the new terminology. Usually, it's kind of happen more like a male population because they really wanna, making a big muscle at the same time, clean diet, maybe protein only, and no fat and no carb, and sometimes they kind of lead into there are not much choice to eat. I mean, they supposed to eat good amount of nutrition and balanced meal, but nothing to eat, and I don't want to socialize with other people because if I go outside, there are nothing I can eat because it's not clean food. I will make my own food. So they usually make their own lunch or maybe dinner whenever they go. But sometimes it didn't work, yeah, in our reality. So there are some common eating disorders. I will go one by one here. Anorexia nervosa, looking at this woman, I mean, she's really pretty thin, but she kind of, think about, I need to lose more weight here and there, and keep kind of, checking their weight in the morning and maybe afternoon, and, try to eat less. And, maybe exercise too much, excessive exercise, because I need to lose weight. But it's not easy, honestly. Have you ever tried to lose weight at a certain point? Not really. Okay. Me neither, honestly. Yeah, I just kind of eat, but I mean, I do not eat not too much, but I really love eating, and kind of cooking is my hobby too. So whenever I kind of stress out, I try to cook, and if I really stress out, I really prefer to eat greasy food like a pizza and lots of cheese in it, and that makes me happy. But I mean, I know after that I regret, but food can be my favorite things kind of to cook and eat. But some people, they really want to, maybe their perspective is beauty is thinness, kind of beauty equal thinness. So I need to lose weight. But thinking about junior high and high school students, their metabolism is really high and they want to eat food, right? Because they have so many, extra activities going on and going to school regularly and study. That's really lots of energy consumption. So that means they need to have a good amount of food. Yeah, good healthy, like maybe including some fruits and vegetables and meat and good carb, right? But if they do not eat those nutrition, those are happening eventually. One of the symptoms, irregular heart rate and chest pain and hypothermia, their temperature is really low and feeling cold all the time, and hair loss and dry skin, and possibility they can go to heaven too early, right? But the problem is if we do not eat certain food, and it's really hard to later on swallow those intestine and all kind of stomach. You need to have a good amount of food to kind of digest, so you kind of circulate your whole body. But if you do not eat and maybe drink maybe a little bit of water and that's it, and the problem is maybe if you have a really hard time kind of even swallow food, so later on you realize I need to eat more food, you can't. So that's why you need to hospitalize and treat, eating disorder. In Tulsa area and nearby, there are so many facilities, honestly. And usually, teenager girls, they suffer eating disorders, and it can be relapsed so quickly because you need to have a good amount of food regularly. But if you do not consume those food, you are losing those ability to digest. So it can be really big problem. Bulimia nervosa, you may not notice it because you do eat binge, you eat a lot with the other people. So it seems like you're okay and you do not look very thin, but the problem is you purge. So it's not a good way for your body, right? Body system, you eat and digest, but before digesting, you just kind of go to restroom and then throw away. So those are maybe relating with symptom can be dental problems and maybe smells bad and chronic sore throat and heartburn. So basically, if you eat certain food, yeah, you enjoy, yeah, and try to kind of digest fully, but you eat, kind of binge eating, yeah, eat a lot, so nobody notice you are suffering eating disorder, but you go somewhere else and purge, yeah. So it can be really hard for that people. But we are talking about not the typical people, it's like an eating disorder, so it's really severe. They really regard eating food and kind of purge, it's kind of regular kind of circle, which is not right, right? Okay. So next one is binge eating disorder. It kind of adding on to the DSM, those psychological, the mental disorder, those textbook, right? So you do eat binge on food at least once a week for 3 months. But after that, you kind of gain weight and feeling maybe embarrassed. I shouldn't do that. Maybe what I did it and all things. But I guess we can kind of talk a little bit about, do you have any food you really kind of sometimes if you're stressed out, maybe binge kind of eating, maybe eating chips or maybe pizza and anything else?
I like pizza.
You like
Pizza
pizza?
a lot. Chili dog.
Chili
I don't
dog,
know.
yeah, that's your kind of your favorite things to do. Yeah, kind of eating, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I love pizza too. It's kind of easy and kind of microwavable, and
delicious.
it's still, yeah, it's really good, like delicious. I love it. So yeah, but I guess binge eating, you're not purging, but still it can be a big problem and feeling not good and obese, kind of relating with that. So it's kind of recently added into the DSM. So remember DSM one more time. Those are Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder. It's a 5th edition. Text revision right now. So that's the kind of Bible of try to diagnose of all different kind of psychological disorders. Okay, so who gets eating disorders? Any guess?
Depends on which one you're talking about, but the younger audience and
Yeah, more like a teenage girls, and they're
Yeah.
kind of suffering. And if you're thinking about other cultures, they look good to me. But maybe for the teenager who is having maybe suffering some eating disorder, they look too fat for them. They need to lose weight. Unfortunately, and certain like a culture, they kind of prefer to have like a more not obese, but having those good amount of fat as a kind of ideal person. But because of social media, they used to be happy with their body size, but not anymore, because we kind of worldly all connected together and looking at the other people are doing, and they're so much thinner than me. So kind of looking at this culturally it was okay, but because of those social media influence, they may thinking about maybe I'm too fat. Yeah, it can be really big problem, but I guess we really shouldn't judge somebody else. Maybe eating, maybe too much, too less. It's really depending on their decision. But I guess we really need to have a good amount of a good nutrition to live in this world, right? Yeah. So thinking about eating disorder as one of the psychological disorders. Okay, here. We kind of talk together here. Thin is really ideal, and I really want to lose weight and become more attractive, because thinness means the beauty, and beauty is everything. If you're young, like a teenage girl, sometimes they do not make a right decision. Do you still remember their prefrontal lobe is still developing? Yeah, so sometimes they just kind of follow the social media influencer, but those social media influencers are not always right? So it can be really big problem for the young generation. But it's better, I guess, but it's not a huge population suffering eating disorder, but it's kind of increasing population. Okay, this one, schizophrenia. Have you ever met somebody who suffer very severe psychological disorder like a schizophrenia? Have you ever met?
I know
Yeah.
somebody that has schizophrenia.
Okay, okay. If you don't mind, can you describe what would be like if you kind of observe that person, what would be like some description would you like to give?
I didn't know for the longest time. I mean, I went to school with him. I didn't really know. I mean, I think it's getting worse. It's gotten worse or something, or the medication stopped working as much or something. But I never even knew until very recently that he had it because he could hide it pretty well. But
Uh-huh.
yeah.
So just kind of looks okay. I mean, like
Yeah,
just
but
like
now it's like he can't sleep and like he hears voices and like yeah, he's definitely getting worse. Like he says he has to have something to sleep, like smoke or something. He hears voices and yeah, he's not doing the best.
I see. Thank you for sharing. Honestly, I've never met person who suffers schizophrenia. I know it's really severe, and there are lots of genetic element too. Genetic element, so it's really severe underlying schizophrenia, severe psychological disorder. So a person may be showing some bizarre, some disturbance of hearing voices, and maybe threatening feelings, and somebody tried to kill me or maybe try to arrest me, so I need to run away. So their big thing is they really hard time to differentiate reality and their imagination. It's not happening for them, but they kind of regard that's really happening to them, so it's really hard for them. So here, psychosis, that's a hallmark. So yeah, they have a really hard time between the real world and imagination, and very confusing. It can be really confusing. And if you are really severe, you cannot live with us, which means they need to hospitalize and to have some special care. That's the maybe best things for them. But if you feel better and maybe medication works, maybe kind of looks like just like you mentioned, maybe normal life can be possible, but it can be challenging for them. It can be changed, maybe their hormone, and used to be working some medication, but not anymore. So it can be really challenging for them. It's really hard psychological disorder, comparing depression and anxiety and other different kind of psychological disorder. So there are two different kind of symptoms. Positive symptom of schizophrenia and negative symptom of schizophrenia. So you feel like, oh, positive, which is good thing, and negative, which is not that good thing, right? You may kind of think about it in that way. But positive symptoms of schizophrenia is kind of thinking about that. Maybe typical people do not experience, but there are people having adding on, like a more positive kind of adding on. So they do hear sound. They do hear certain voice. And they feel like a special feeling come arresting and maybe not secure those feeling. Normal people, I mean the typical people, we do not experience in reality, but they do experience. So those are more like a positive symptoms. So delusion, it's a completely false beliefs. So there are different kind of delusion. Delusions of persecution. Somebody tried to harm you, and arrest you. So you need to run away. Yeah. So it can be really hard for them to thinking about in that delusion, right? And grandeur means sometimes they feel like I have a Superman power. So maybe I can conquer this world. So which is not, like in reality, right? As a human being, but they do have those, delusion of, grandeur. And reference means, oh, I need to meet you today because somebody told me to go to east area, maybe meet you. Yeah, so that's why I kind of, meeting you right now. So somebody kind of commands you to go a certain direction or maybe meeting certain people. So those are reference. Yeah. So when you see bluebird, that means good day for day. So something they try to make some connection, even though it's kind of maybe accidentally happen and just kind of naturally happen, and they intentionally maybe hear about certain boys and then go to in that direction. So it's a totally completely false beliefs, but it's so strong for them. So it can be really hard for them to live in real life. And hallucination, underline, it's a false sensation or perception. Underline, usually those people who suffer schizophrenia, they do hear voice. That's the first thing. They do hear some sound. We do not, usually the typical people, we do not hear, but they do hear some extra sound. So it can be really challenging, especially maybe sleeping time. So it can be hard. Okay. So here, negative symptoms, which means they should experience, they should have a certain feeling. So whenever you feel very sad at the moment of the funeral, many people cry, right? Because emotionally really comforting, try to other people and think about that person who died, but they do not cry at all. Very kind of, no facial expression and kind of emotionally not there. So we do feel, we do hear maybe happy and maybe sad and maybe embarrassing moment, but they do not have those emotions. So it's not there. They should feel, but not there. So absent of appropriate emotion, that's the flat affect. Yeah, so flat affect. Affect is more like an emotion, so flat emotion can happen. So basically, a positive symptom is not that positive because they do hear voice and they do experience like extra. They can maybe think somebody try to harm you and you really need to escape. So those are positive symptoms. And negative symptom is you're supposed to have those emotions, but you are lacking. Way behind of those emotions. So it's really hard for them to live some typical life in this world. So cognitive symptoms of schizophrenia, they disturb the illogical ways that people with schizophrenia think. So when they kind of say, you may notice it doesn't make sense sometimes. But I guess from your experience, maybe that person was okay, kind of communicating with you, and you didn't find any difference. Growing up.
When he started getting older, you could tell he was different, acting different and stuff. But yeah, when the meds were working, he was acting normal.
Okay, yeah. So I know, those people who suffer all different kind of psychological disorder, they are with us, which means we do live together. So this chapter 14 and chapter 15, basically we want to understand better who suffer psychological disorder and how can you help them, how can you understand them better. So that's the key point. So here, why does schizophrenia develop? There are lots of more biological reasons, and so comparing to depression and anxiety, schizophrenia is a very severe psychological disorder. People say it's more like a genetic and biological inheritance can be possibly more happen. So if their parents suffer schizophrenia, their children maybe higher chance to suffer those schizophrenia comparing to parents who doesn't have schizophrenia. And if you're twins, maybe one of the twins suffer schizophrenia, the other twin will suffer schizophrenia highly comparing to other siblings. So genetic element is bigger. But interesting is here, if you're kind of looking at this one, the month of the birth and likelihood of schizophrenia diagnosis in adulthood. So if your month of the birth more like a winter, January, February, March, and kind of winter and early spring birth, they may having more schizophrenia, those psychological disorders. So I was wondering why is that? So basically, statistically, if you are pregnant, pregnant a baby, those having maybe 4th month, like 6 months, and kind of toward more the later delivery, it's kind of going through the winter session, November and December. Possibility is you do not move your body much comparing to like a spring or maybe summer. So maybe less having maybe vitamin D. So go outside and having good sunshine. That kind of give you like a vitamin D. But I guess you do not maybe go out too much and moving not too much comparing to warm season. So you kind of go through those pregnancy and deliver the baby January or February. And so it's not the only one reason, but there are so many possibilities, right? And here, structure of the brain comparing to other typical developing children and maybe adults, they have a smaller size of hippocampus and amygdala and thalamus. Those hippocampus is relating with their memory and learning. So when you come to campus, so sometimes their memory, it's kind of smaller, the portion and the size-wise, and maybe they maybe sense too sensitively, like amygdala, and those are relating with the limbic system, right? So those area is kind of maybe shrinking, like a little smaller than typical people. So it can be possible like a problem of the having more schizophrenic those symptoms too. And dopamine, it's too much dopamine, those limbic system, like amygdala and kind of fear. So we do fear, but they may fear maybe more excessively because of the dopamine influence too. But they have a less dopamine, those prefrontal cortex. They make a decision, maybe organization skill and plan ahead. That area dopamine is less comparing to other people. So it can be one of the reason kind of people kind of research, but it's ongoing research. We do not know what exactly caused the schizophrenia, but we try to find it out and try to help those people who suffer schizophrenia. The possibility is they have a smaller structure of the brain, which is relating with those hippocampus, amygdala, and thalamus. And the neurotransmitter dopamine, the level is too much, overwhelming those limbic system, but kind of less those prefrontal lobe, which is like a cortex, making a decision and planning ahead. That area is lacking. So, and also birth-wise, possibility is as a pregnant woman kind of, go through winter season, maybe do not go outside and less exercise and more like not actively, comparing to summer kind of pregnancy, possibility is there, but it's not like a one reason you suffer maybe schizophrenia because of those. But it's interesting, right? Interesting. Okay, let's talk about disorders of childhood. I don't want to say disorder, but still, that's a part of the disorder too. Have you ever heard about ADHD? ADHD and autism spectrum disorder. Those are really commonly happen for our students too. And I heard from students, they got diagnosed when they're in elementary school, and still they need to take the medicine, and medicine help them. And some of them, they become adult, and they do not take anymore. So they try to adjust some herb therapy and breathing exercise and concentration. And so it's really depending on the severity of ADHD and autism spectrum disorder. So let's talk about it because those are really commonly happen in our society. And also people diagnosed more and more. ADHD, maybe in the past, people do not hear about ADHD. What is that? Maybe those are kids who having maybe rough and tumble play and do not focus, but they're kids. Maybe that's why. But not anymore. If kids do not pay attention and kind of bothering their classroom, usually the teacher kind of asks their parents, why don't you get some, some tests about ADHD, and medication can help that child concentration better. So we will talk about those ADHD, hyperactivity, that's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So have you ever heard somebody suffer maybe ADHD? in your life?
They said I had it, but my mom said no to the medication.
Okay, yeah. So I want to hear from you. So what would be why people think, maybe people kind of suggest to you, you may have some ADHD, or maybe you got, yeah,
Just like it's hard for me to focus on a lot of stuff, really.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, if I'm just sitting down, I don't know, I kind of get bored and start thinking about other stuff. I'm like, oh, I gotta focus. It's like- yeah, I don't know. There's multiple ways that it can
Sure.
affect. But my mom didn't really agree with ADHD being an issue for everyone. She said she didn't think I had it bad enough to where I needed medication.
Uh-huh.
Because I mean, like you said, obviously some people are worse than others with
Sure.
it. So, you know.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So honestly, if it is okay and if you can handle, the problem is you're fidgeting and maybe cannot, focus and even maybe bothering other people. Maybe it can happen in the elementary school, and then maybe as a teacher, I cannot teach all those in maybe 20 students in this class because your son, maybe daughter, is really bothering, like other people. But it's really depending on some of the kids, they do not show hyperactivity, more like ADD, attention deficit disorder. It's more happening for the girls. Yeah, they do not, bother any class or anybody else, but they do suffer. They cannot concentrate, fidgeting, and even though you're kind of sitting for 1 hour, nothing in their, like a brain, right? Because they cannot remember anything. Kind of keep thinking about maybe other things. After this, maybe I need to hang out with my friends and yeah. Yeah, so it's really depending on, and also depending on parents too, how parents allow, let them take the medicine or not. But usually I do agree over like this case. If maybe kids suffer ADHD kind of symptom and cannot focus and they lose everything, pretty much. They cannot organize much and they're losing their pencil and their clothing and they just kind of forgot somewhere else, but they don't know how to grab all the kind of organizing at a one spot. It can be okay, the elementary school. Like a junior high can be okay too. But when they kind of go to high school, the problem is their grade is suffering. They cannot, they want to study, but somehow they cannot concentrate on, and they want to have a good grade, but they cannot make it because of all the relating with the study habit and those daily life. It can be really challenging for them. In that case, they make a decision to take the medicine. So when they take the medicine, it's kind of stimulant, kind of focusing more and stimulate your brain. So when you take the medicine, those prefrontal lobe, we've been talking about the function of prefrontal lobe is making a decision and organizing skill and plan ahead. Those prefrontal function is enhanced, kind of helping you. So people think, oh, that person is already hyperactive. Why do we need to give some stimulant? Stimulant means like a brain activity more and more. But we are kind of stimulate those prefrontal cortex. Yeah. So kind of let them help, helping them kind of focusing more and, organizing skills and plan ahead. So basically let them study better, right? Kind of focus, right? So it has been working, but there are side effects too. Sometimes they, as a side effect, they don't, they lose their appetite. They don't want to eat food anymore. That's the really major symptom. Sometimes they have some sleeping problem, cannot sleep. And people say zombie-like, which is they are not there. They're kind of in a happiness and somehow kind of everything kind of calm down and really focusing on. So it's really depending on the activating of those medication. But I guess maybe you as a parent, you really need to make a right decision for your individual kids. So I really respect your mom's decision because her perspective is that you are okay. Maybe you are having some like some concentration problem, but I guess it's not that high enough to medicate you.
Yeah.
And she really respect you too because she wanna kind of keep your personality and all the as a boy. Maybe it may be okay, but I guess still maybe some people need those medication
Yeah.
because they cannot function their daily life. So go back to our diagnosed. If we want to say psychological disorder, maybe somebody who's suffering and goes see a doctor, how bother their daily life, right? Yeah. So anxiety can be okay. I mean, somebody can be really anxious. I mean, I'm kind of fearful of everything pretty much, but I can do my daily life and I can come to here and then do like a lecture in front of you. But some people, because of that, they cannot come to class. They cannot come out of their bed. They really need to take some medicine, right? And some like help, some professional help. So it's the same thing. ADHD, maybe from young age, some of them, they may suffer, but if they think it's okay, you don't need to take medicine and anything else. But actually, medicine kind of helps you focus better, and you may lose some opportunity if you do not take at the right time, right? As a kids, we have a study time, kind of. Junior high and high school is really important, right? And if you take those medication maybe for 2 to 3 years, yeah, during those high school era, and after that, when you become adult, you don't need to take it. Yeah, so it's really depending on. But one of my best friends, he's taking medicine every day. He's kind of in charge. I mean, he's like a principal in a big junior high school. And he told me if without taking those medication, he cannot function. He cannot take his job. So he's taking those ADHD medicine from very young age, like elementary school, but still he need to take to medicine to function. So if you cannot take it, he cannot do well his job. So in that case, maybe he really need that. And yeah, so it's really depending on. So how can we diagnose? If you really want to diagnose that person maybe having some ADHD, it's usually happen before 12. So 12 is like a junior high age, right? So before that, usually it's happening like a kindergarten and those in the elementary school period. Maybe teacher kind of recommend their parents, maybe you'd better get some, take some like a test. Maybe that person, maybe your child doesn't focusing on and kind of fidgeting behavior. Maybe it's really hard to focusing on his or maybe her work. So try to get some tests, right? And the symptom must be present at least 2 settings, which means those fidgeting and cannot concentrate on at school setting and also at home too. Yeah, and also at church or maybe certain organization, institution. So try to kind of see and how does it work. Maybe that person cannot focusing on only at school setting or maybe home setting. Maybe think one more time, right? And I realized depending on country too. In Hong Kong, they have a higher rate kind of having some ADHD. So that means the teachers and people, if maybe kids behave like a very fidgeting behavior and cannot focus and bothering other people, they really want that person get medication and then try to diagnose it as ADHD. Yeah, maybe right away. So depending on country and culture, the population of ADHD is fluctuating too. Is it kind of make sense too? Yeah. Some people, maybe European country, maybe more kind of lenient about maybe hard time to kind of diagnose it ADHD. Yeah. So it's really depending on the country and their culture, how to receive those behavior, more positively or more negatively as well. Okay. So here, autism spectrum disorder. Have you ever met those people, maybe kids suffer the autism spectrum disorder? Yeah. What would be their characteristics, if you don't mind, if you remember anything?
It just depends. I mean, usually they're like a little bit delayed in one way, and then in another way, they're really artistic or they're really good at playing
Yes,
an
yes.
instrument or they're, you know,
Uh-huh.
it's usually one, you know, one or the other.
Yeah. So those behavior, the first thing is sometimes they're really genius level, just like you mentioned, like a puzzle solving or some mathematics skills and maybe language, reading books and analytic skills too. But they're obviously lacking those social elements. They really have a hard time kind of eye contact. That's really big indication too. Even though you kind of, maybe be friend and get together for a while, it's really challenging for them to looking at you like eye to eye, like eye contact can be really challenging. Usually, and also they showing those autism spectrum disorder symptom starting from age 2, maybe 1 or 2, kind of rocking motion and kind of banging their head on the wall and really focusing on maybe certain very tiny thing. Yeah. Yeah, overstimulate. Yes. So it can be really challenging, but it's there a spectrum, which is autism spectrum disorder, mild symptom versus severe symptom. Severe symptom, obviously, their caregiver should be always there. They cannot live by themselves. But mild symptom, they can be just kind of in the same regular classroom, maybe some little special attention and care that can help them. They're really high linguistically. I mean, they're really good at like a scholarly, like those activity too, like mathematics and English and all things, but they're lacking only one thing, which is a social interaction. So have you ever met maybe in your class when you go to high school, some of the kids, they're maybe people say kind of weird because they do not talk to other people and they have their own world, honestly. So, I mean, they're really good at, academically, but they are not socially, active at all. Yeah. So those people, I mean, it's around us. Yeah. So severity of spectrum of autism spectrum disorder, depending on that, we can kind of try to help those people. Okay. So the next one is dissociative disorder. It's rarely happen, but it's just, maybe we watch some movie relating with some dissociative disorder symptoms. So dissociative identity disorder, DID. Yeah, have you ever heard of like DID, dissociative identity disorder? So that people, maybe somebody has two identity, maybe in the morning versus at the nighttime, totally become totally different personality having it. Maybe in the daytime, working hard and focusing on, maybe a very diligent worker, but at nighttime become totally maybe some like love drinking and maybe party and totally different person. Even they have a two different name. Yeah, so it's really happening, and we do have it like 1%. A poor population-wise, so it's not commonly happen comparing to depression and anxiety. Those are 30% of population and 20% population, but it's still there. So we want to kind of learn and understand. And dissociative amnesia and dissociative fugue. So we will talk one by one here. So DID, dissociative identity disorder. So we learned about personality, right? And people kind of say about multiple personality disorder because totally different personality having 2 or 3. So well-known person was the case of Sybil. She kind of say, I have a diagnosed also too, 16 different personality, which means it's from time to time, it can be morning and afternoon, and also a period too, maybe 2 weeks and 1 month, kind of behave more like a child, yeah, maybe 4 to 5 child, yeah, kind of having all the temper tantrum, those child, and maybe become adult, yeah, so maybe middle agehood adult, yeah, adult woman, and also become more teenage boys. So personality is fluctuating, so people say that person have multiple personality, which is dissociative identity disorder. Have you ever met, or maybe even maybe thinking about in your life, maybe DID, like a, yeah?
Like I said, I had that
Really?
one girl tell me that she was, but I mean, I don't have proof. You know, she didn't show me proof, so who's to say that wasn't her just making up an excuse to why her marriage didn't work out or whatever, but
Okay.
I don't know. It's just somebody I went to school with.
Okay.
Yeah, they said they had it.
I see.
But I've seen the movie Split as well, if you've watched that.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there are lots of movie and TV show relating with those DID, but actually, people who suffer those multiple personality disorder, I think it will be really hard for them
Wow.
because they kind of bought maybe certain food and maybe some clothing, but maybe next morning do not remember who I was. Yeah.
Or speak two different languages.
Oh yeah. I
That'd
think.
be weird. It's like have two different personalities that speak two different languages.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's a really challenging situation, but still there are people who suffer dissociative identity disorder. So here, if you do suffer, I mean, some of the symptoms can be dissociative amnesia. Usually it's happening, you become like having those DID later on, become an adult, yeah. And you become, a person becomes unable to record the past, which is you are born in Claremore. Somehow some tragic things to happen to you suddenly, and you just make a decision to go to New York area. But when you go to New York, you do not remember who you are. Even you do not remember your name and what did you do before, but you just kind of become a new person and new life. And because you are lost, those hold the past. And also this one is we kind of from time to time we hear from the news and the movie scene too, right? So something happened, maybe some tornado. Tornado is a really big thing in Oklahoma, and tornado hit maybe somebody else's house. And after that tragic moment, kind of make the person lost all the memory, and then moving to somewhere else, maybe LA area, totally different place. But the problem is the person do not remember why I'm here and what was happening before. So that can be really challenging for them to remember who that person was. And dissociative fugue, those are relating with the dissociative amnesia too. You do not remember what was happening to you and why you are here, but they travel. Yeah. So that's the big problem too, because there's nobody who know about you, but you kind of go somewhere else and begin to new life. I mean, luckily, if you have some supporting, group, that would be great. But it can be really hard to kind of live in the totally new place. But luckily, we need to remember it's not happening everybody. It's excessively rare psychological disorder, maybe 1% or maybe even less than 1% of population. So we will talk about the last personality disorder, which is there are kind of other 10 of those personality disorders, but we will focusing on those two, borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. Have you ever heard about borderline personality disorder?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, yeah. How about antisocial personality disorder?
I've heard of antisocial.
Yeah, so we were kind of focusing on those two. Borderline personality disorder is somebody, maybe you trust your friends and maybe you get along very well, but just like maybe suddenly, maybe a year later, that person maybe say, I hate you and I do not like you and I'm gonna leave you. Without not specific reason, totally different attitude towards you. So as a, like a best friend, you may feel confused and very hurtful, but the person actually suffer those borderline personality disorder. So actually, I kind of experience, I get to know one person. There was a woman, and she and I was really close each other, and we feel like we are really good friend. And suddenly, kind of maybe almost like 1 year later, she just kind of turned totally different person and kind of ignore my message and ignore my phone. So I was wondering what's really happening to her, but I guess she's kind of suffering those kind of borderline personality disorder. And it can happen for anybody. So I went to a conference, one of the conference, a couple of years ago, and the person was a mom of having a daughter who suffered borderline personality disorder. So she kind of, because she was wondering if it's a real thing, borderline personality disorder, she wanna study more about that because she want to understand better her daughter and then try to help her. So conclusion-wise, borderline personality disorder is a real thing, yeah. But I guess depending on how, as a parent and maybe siblings can help those people, maybe those people can be better. That was like her kind of finding. So since you heard of borderline personality disorder, have you met that person or maybe you just kind of heard about it? You heard of it?
I didn't even know what it was really. I thought, that somebody completely changed who they were.
Yeah.
But
It can be really hurt. Because I got lots of hurt because I trust her so much and I thought that she's my best friend. But suddenly she just, maybe bye-bye, Sarah, I'm not your friend anymore and do not contact me anymore. So it was really tough. So yeah. That's the one of the symptom. And antisocial personality disorder, if you're thinking about anti-societal disorder, it can be easy. They may harm other people and kill other people, but thinking about that, how could you do that and why did you do that? I just want to, or maybe I just feel like. They don't have any guilty feeling, even though you harm other people. So it can be really dangerous, honestly. So we really need to avoid and be careful about antisocial personality disorder. Yeah, those people who suffer. So there are so many different kind of, but today we will talk focusing on antisocial personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. So borderline personality disorder, unstable and unpredictable, and rapidly and drastically changing view of self and others, and impulsive and tumultuous. So when I met the person, she was really sweet and very close and open-minded, and I kind of open-minded, and I tried to kind of share my weakness and strengths and try to help her and become a best friend. But 1 year later, she just totally become totally different person. I was like, oh, that was like, who are you? Who are you? Yeah. Okay. So antisocial personality is they do all the illegal stuff, but they do not feel any guilty feeling. And if kind of we ask them, I want to, or maybe I feel like to do today. And even though if they kind of put into the jail, and after that in legal situation, they just kind of say, I don't feel any guilty feeling and I'm okay. And so it can be really challenging. So we'll talk a little bit about those personality disorder, but today I invited Dr. O'Malley, who is the department head, the psychology and sociology department, and she has been counseling for a long time, over 25 years, and I do not have those counseling and therapy background, so I want to welcome her today, and she's talking about her experience as a counselor and therapist. Yay!
How are you doing?
good.
It's kind of weird with just one person in the room and then everybody
Yeah,
else out in TV land. So
Both of us some learning.
yeah. I think it's interesting that I came in too while we're talking about personality disorders because I have a lot of experience working with folks who have personality disorders. So if you're thinking in the future that you want to be a therapist or a counselor or anything like that, you're going to run into a lot of these people, especially from this particular cluster with the antisocial personality disorder and the borderline personality disorders. Those are probably going to be the two most common things that you would run across. So you might think, oh, those are so extreme and I don't know how anybody could fit into those categories. But a lot of people fit into those categories, and you come across them fairly frequently in your normal everyday today life. You also, when you read in the textbook about the descriptions of them, if a certain person comes to mind, say a family member or a friend comes to mind, don't be too alarmed about it. I mean, I think that happens to a lot of people too, is that, oh, I recognize people, especially when you're studying psychology. It's like, oh, I recognize someone in this. Oh, that's Uncle Tim, or that's Aunt Kat, or whatever it is. But yeah, and I always caution people, don't go run and tell Uncle Tim or Aunt Kat that I found out why you are the way you are. Don't do that. Don't play the armchair psychologist. But, just kind of keep that in mind as you visit with the person or as you have interactions with the person. And that gives you some idea as to why they behave the way they do, and sometimes why they can't help from doing some of the things that they do. It doesn't mean nobody gets a pass for bad behavior, right? We don't want to do that, but it does kind of help to know that, okay, I understand this a little bit more. And frankly, I find people fascinating. And so sometimes when you look at these diagnostic criteria, it's really interesting that, okay, you fit in here, and you play that little game, but try not to take it too seriously with it. Even, I mean, I've got, over 25 years, way longer than that, she was being generous, experience in working with some of these folks. And it's hard not to do that. But you really kind of have to just move on with, okay, what role do they play in my life, and how can I make this the best relationship I can? And sometimes it's actually about distancing yourself from people too, and recognizing some of the, what we might call toxic traits that they have, and their inability to work on, or their lack of desire to work on changing and adapting some of those to more positive traits. And then those are kind of the people that you want to say, okay, I just need my distance. Maybe I don't want to cut you completely out, but I need to have these boundaries. And so I'm going to make sure that we uphold these boundaries. You can get this close, but not this close, right? So, and that's an important thing for people to learn, is that, especially in the world of psychology, is that everyone, it's okay to have personal boundaries. And it's okay to keep people at an arm's length that you don't necessarily feel safe with, or that your vibes don't match, right? So it's okay to keep those people at arm's length, and they're in your world whenever they need to be in your world, but they don't have to be in your world every single day, right? And you can keep that distance going. So I think that's something that a lot of people forget, that they're allowed to have those personal distances with people and allowed to manage relationships that they have with people. So personality disorders, extremely interesting. I love talking about it. I love learning about it. You can never stop learning about things like this. I think this is one of the most exciting things about psychology, is theories are changing and treatment methods are evolving, and it's a moving target all the time. You never stop learning. You have to be a lifelong learner to be really successful in it. What else did you want me to talk about?
So, I was just you mentioned about those, treatment has been changed.
Yes.
And how does it change? Just curious. You're expert on
what we find out over time is, when you look at kind of the history of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, I don't even know that we would still call them a mental disorder if we could find a better name for that. But you look at the history of that, typically originally it was a system designed to get people out of a community, right? So it was the old system of asylums, and you'd send people that could not be a part of, or a community member, and you'd send them away to this system where you thought they would be taken care of and well cared for. And then we found out they weren't. And we found out all the horrible things. And you guys, if you're interested in psychology, which you are, you probably have read of some of those terrible things that people just got shoved off to asylums, and people did horrible experiments on them and whatever, kept them locked up in little cages. And now we know that just makes the system, it makes it worse, right? So now we moved into a system of having large hospital systems, and that's when we really scienced up the study of psychology and tried to make it fit a medical model. So you have a list of symptoms that people would display. And if you have more of like 5 or more of these symptoms, then you have this label. It's like a disease, like the flu. If you have 5 or more of these symptoms, you have the flu. If you have 5 or more of these symptoms, you have COVID. If, whatever it is. So about the 1950s is when we decided to do that. And I'm saying we, like I was a part of the development of this. I really wasn't. I'm not quite that old. But so in the 50s, we moved to that kind of medical model. And so the style of treatment was really, and that's about the same time frame where pharmaceutical companies started developing drugs to help with mental illness. So what you had happen, and this is a really interesting thing in the history of asylums in the US, is we had asylums where we would send people off and they were really working more like farms. And you had a big building and males would be on one side and females would be on the other side. And then you'd have levels of floor, and the least restrictive would be on the first floor. And the most restrictive, the people that could not function in communities, would be on the top floor. But what you'd see around these asylums was farms and a barn with animals. And they routinely would grow their own food, they would grow their own beef, they'd have their own milk, they'd have their own chickens with eggs and all that kind of stuff. And then when the world of pharmaceuticals came along and we started medicating people, so really what we did was we just lowered one of the first medications was something akin to, or what developed into, Thorazine. So we just zoned them out. Right? And so the world of asylums became very different looking because we couldn't get them up to go out and tend the gardens. I mean, everybody had a job and a responsibility, and it worked really well. And then when the medications came in, people were just zoned out, and they didn't want to do that. They don't want to go tend the chickens or feed the cows or whatever it was their job was. They were just kind of doing the bed rot thing that we do now. We use that for a different purpose now, but that's kind of what was going on. And so we had this switch in the world of psychological treatment where we just started medicating instead of treating. And now we look at things more in a community-minded approach, and that's typically what I think is the best approach. And how can we get people to be more successful in their own lives and lead closer to leading the lives that they want? It's like figuring out, what do you see as your best life? And let's try to get you closer to that, right? So with like antisocial personality disorder, and particularly borderline personality disorder, those are folks that they're really hard to be in long-term relationships with, and they don't have very stable long-term relationships. They'll go from one partner to another partner to another partner to another partner and not really be able to connect. Well, when you talk to them and they come in for therapy, that's usually one of the things they want. I want to have a secure, loving, committed relationship. We're like, okay, this is great. This is exactly what you want. Now let's figure out how we can make that happen. And some of the things are, we pick wrong partners, right? Because we pick partners that seem to be all super exciting and all encompassing, and they love bomb us, and we love that feeling, right? It feels good. But then we also get in the way. Right? So we'll get in the way of a relationship by being overly suspicious because we don't have trust for whatever reason. Maybe we've experienced a relationship where our partner cheated, and now we come into this new relationship and we're treating this new partner the same way with the same level of suspicion that the old partner deserved. And so we're looking at that saying, well, what are the clues? And you're accusing them of something they haven't done. Sooner or later, they're either going to do it or they're going to get sick of being accused and they're going to be out. So let's figure out how we can best serve yourself by mitigating some of these behaviors that you have that keep you from getting what you want, right? So we look at things like that. And sometimes when you get into like mood disorders and you talk about dysthymic disorder or double depression or a bipolar mood disorder, some of those do take medication, right? But we want the sweet spot in treatment for those things is some medication and some therapy. If you're only doing medication, you're not making changes in your life, because once you don't take that medication, you're back exactly at point one, no change. If you do therapy, it's really hard to go to therapy when you're super depressed because you may not be able to get out of bed.
Yeah.
So how are you going to go to therapy if you can't get out of bed? You're not. So you might need the medication to give you enough energy so you can get up and go to counseling. And that's that sweet spot where we can have a lower dose or whatever dose is required of the medication to get you to be able to make changes, and then for you to be in a relationship with a therapist that's going to help you continue to make those changes. And then you may or may not need the medication later. You may go out of therapy and come back to therapy later. I don't think that therapy is a consistent lifelong thing. Right? I think we go in and out of counseling as we need it in our lives. You get in, maybe you get into some things that are causing you a lot of anxiety and you're feeling that and for whatever reason, you can't control it very well. So you go into therapy, you learn some coping mechanisms, you learn and you figure it out, and then you've got it under control again. And then maybe later you get in a relationship where it's like, oh my gosh, it's back. It's back. So you go right back into therapy, get those coping skills, develop some new things, look at the relationship, and okay, I feel good, and you go out again. So it's not something that you should be in for, 20 years. That's old school psychoanalytic therapy, and not very many people do those, where you just, the Freudian thing where you lay on the couch and just say whatever comes to mind. Not very many people do that anymore. Most therapists tend to be very time focused because we know that you only have so much time to devote to this. And if we don't do something that's going to give you some quicker results, then you're probably not going to come back and see us. Well, that's one of the downsides of being a therapist is people come and go, and sometimes they leave when you don't want them to. They're like, well, we've got a lot more we could do, and you wonder what happened to them. Right? I wonder what they're doing. I wonder how they're doing. Wonder how their kids are doing. So that's one of the downsides is that you have a lot of, sometimes people just disappear and you're left with, well, hopefully they'll come back when they're ready to come back. Right? And then sometimes you get through a treatment plan, which is just a list of goals and the objectives as to how we're going to reach those goals. Sometimes they'll get to the end of a treatment plan and you'll say, okay, it looks like we've accomplished everything you want to accomplish. Is there something new we should take on, or are you feeling good right now and let's just let it go for now? And you go on and live your life, and then if you need anything, come back. That's a great thing. That's a great feeling because you feel like, yeah, I did my job and I was helping someone and it was all fantastic. And then the other side is the very next person just doesn't show up and, oh my gosh, I'm so worried. Where are they? What's happening? I'm so worried about it. And then maybe you don't see it for a couple of months, or maybe you never see them again. And that's tough. That's kind of tough to deal with. But it's a natural part of the job. I mean, you don't go out and hunt down people to come into therapy. That's not what it's about. They need to want to come in and want to make some changes. And, that's part of a model of change, too, is people need to want that help. And they need to also see a pathway to get to where they want to be. I talk about living your best life. And that's not my version of what your best life should be. That's your version of your best life. So that's how we make goals. It's on your version, your vision for yourself, not my vision for where I think you should be. Because not everybody's going to be at my level, or not even think that something I have, something I value or something I want to work in may not be important to that person, right? So it's got to be about them first and foremost, as opposed to about the counselor or the therapist sitting in there. Then we make changes. Part of the thing is there's some really cool research coming out of the University of Oklahoma, but it's on hope theory. And that hope theory says we all need to have hope, right? That's how we get into therapy, is we think that we can make some changes and we could make our lives better, but there are things that get in the way of that. And what a counselor can do is help you learn to work around those things that get in your way, or through them, or over them, or whatever it is, to clear out a pathway where you can get closer to that goal, get closer to living the kind of life that you want to live. So you've got to have the hope, the ability, somebody to help you with the pathway to see that you can get to that goal. And then you also have to have a lot of stamina to keep working towards those goals. Right? It's like everybody here, it's a college degree is a goal, right? So if you didn't have any stamina, where would you be? If you had no hope and felt like you were never going to pass your classes and never going to reach that goal, would you be here? Not at all. Because why would you waste the time and the money? You wouldn't be here at all. Somehow you have hope that you're going to be able to pass your classes and you're going to walk across the stage one day in your cap and gown, right? But as instructors, like as a therapist, we got to help you with that process. And we got to help you with, we teach you assignments, we teach you a lot of content so that you become prepared for that life. Same thing as therapy. It's a little bit different because it's your personal life, not your educational life. But same thing. We get you prepared for that life and help you get there. What else do you want to know? I'm just rambling on about a lot of different things.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing.
So,
Daniel,
nice
would
to
you
pick
like
your brain.
to ask any?
I don't know, but I do find all of it interesting that, I mean, there's just so much to psychology though, but like
Yes.
it's really cool learning, like you said, you do kind of, once you start learning psychology, you start looking at other people and you're just like, oh, so that makes a little bit more sense. Or
Yeah.
looking at past relationships and doing
Yeah.
that. But I think it's cool to see that there's a lot of people in the psychology department to help people. Because that's the main reason I'm gonna be a nurse, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I think that's really cool. There are humans that care about other humans.
Yeah, there absolutely are. And I think, and that's a wonderful thing. And, I'm a big fan of psychology, obviously, but I also don't believe that there is any kind of profession that you can have or any kind of job, career, whatever you want to call it, that you can have that does not involve psychology. It's all, and I think that's why the intro to psych is one of the general education classes, because you're going to come across people, whether you're a coworker in a private relationship with them, or you're their boss, or whatever it is, you're going to come across people that you're going to remember this and go, oh, okay, let me figure that out, right? Let me figure that out. Yesterday I sat in, so you never stop learning. So yesterday I sat in a webinar where a woman was talking about antagonistic leaders. It was either trauma-informed leadership or antagonistic leaders. And she was talking about how those antagonistic leaders usually also have narcissistic personality disorder, which is one on this list. And so she was talking about how they normally lead, and they don't care a lot about the people beneath them or around them. They're just for making as big a splash as they can. And so they're creating a world around them that looks super successful, but everything else is falling apart. Right. And I think we can see a little bit of that, and not to be political, but I think we can see some of that.
We've all been seeing it for a while.
Yeah. And it happens you got to be pretty narcissistic. Not that you might have the personality disorder, but you got to have a high level of narcissism to think that you can run this country any better than anybody else that's ever run it before. I mean, you got to have a lot of confidence in yourself, and you got to step into that box and be willing to put yourself in that spotlight, right? And your family in that spotlight. So it definitely does take a certain type of characteristics to even step into the arena for that. Just like anything else with the CEO of a big company or a university president or what, because you have to have certain characteristics to be the face of a university, right? And everything that goes on to, or the face of a hospital, and everything that goes into what makes that hospital run. It's really different, very different. But some of it's good stuff. I mean, we couldn't, we wouldn't be where we are without those folks. And then some of it we look at and go, nah, you need to tone that down. You need to get some help, right? And then I don't know if we had I'm sure that we've had presidents that, and world leaders of all kinds and corporate leaders that have sought therapy. I'm sure we've had those people. It's just impossible to think otherwise. But some of them needed it more than others, but yeah, who's to say? I'm trying not to judge, but yeah. Also, judging is a little bit of human nature. So we're all going to do a little bit of it at some time, despite the fact that we might try not to. It's human nature. All right, any other questions? I think I had the 1 minute.
No, but I
Sign
really do
up there.
appreciate you coming.
Yeah, I think the world of therapy and doing therapy is, like I said, it's always evolving because we always find out new things about people and new ways to approach the issues that people face. Super interesting. And you get into doing some really wild things that you thought you'd never do. I mean, which has certainly been part of my career too. I've done things that I thought I would never, ever do. So.
And also I realize nowadays students they're really having open mind to getting a therapy. Even like email me, Dr. Moon, I cannot be in your class because I have a therapy. Somehow it's double booked and I need to get there and then maybe next time see you. So I think I got so many of those, I need to see my therapist and they're really having open mind to
I think so. I like that because I think there's no point in life where somebody doesn't need a little bit of help in making a decision or changing their life or doing whatever. Everybody needs a little bit of help once in a while. And that's what therapy is and can offer you. So like I said, it's not a lifelong pursuit. It's when you need a little help, go get a little help. There's no shame to it. We all need help at some point for something. So